All right, so this is a continuation of the notes for logic on statements. So last time we know that what statements are: a true or false sentence, a sentence with a truth value. You can't be in between. And we also know that every statement fits into one of three categories. It's either universal, existential, or particular. Now that we know what statements are, it's time to start doing some things with them. And we're going to start off with a pretty easy one called negation. All right, so we know what a statement is, then the negation, here's a little vocab, the negation of a statement is a statement whose truth value is always the opposite to that of the original statement. So the negation of a statement is a statement whose truth value is always the opposite to that of the original statement. And this sounds easier than it is, because sometimes it is easy. It's very like third grade, where you say, today is my birthday. So the statement that would have the exact opposite meaning to that would be today is not my birthday. However, there are some tricky things. So I'll show you an example of something that's a little trickier for people. So if I said, the wall, here's a statement, you put it in quotes usually. The wall is completely white. And then sometimes when people see that, that's my statement. Usually I'll do an S for that. I can put any letter. But let's say this is my statement, and I represent it by S. And I say the wall is completely white. If I ask somebody what the opposite of that is, sometimes they will say the wall is completely black. If I could spell completely correctly. However, this is not a negation of that. And I'll tell you why. Because, let's see this. Pretend that right there is true. Like I'm looking at a wall and it is completely white. Is this one false? Yeah. But here's the key word. Is it always false? So if that wall over there is white and this statement is true, this statement's false. But what if that wall over there is green? If that wall is green, is this one true? No, that's false. And this one is false? Uh-oh. You can't have them mean the same because a negation is always the opposite. This statement is actually called, it's not a negation. It's actually called a contrary. I don't think you really need to memorize that, but it's just saying something with one part of it as an opposite meaning. So what is a negation of S? Well, a negation of S, first of all, if you want to know the symbol for it, you do the little tilde, the squiggly line. This means the negation of S. That would be the wall is not completely white. That seems pretty easy, but if you think about it, let's say that wall in the back of the room is white. Okay, this is true. That's false. Let's say the wall in the back of the room has a big splotch of green on it. This one would be false. That one would be true. What if the wall in the back of the room is totally blue? This one would be false. That one would be true. It's not completely white. So you start to get the thing. This thing right here is not a negation. A lot of people think it. They're like, oh, what's the opposite of white? It's black. But be careful. You want a statement that always gives you the opposite truth value of this. And you'll get used to it. Anyway, So we'll go through some examples of different types, and it's kind of weird. But once you get the hang of it, it's not bad. All right, so let's see if you got the idea of negation. If I said my statement, I'm going to name it P, is, in quotes, the car is going north. Okay, that's my statement. What is the negation of that statement? I'll let you think for a second. What's the negation of the car is going north? It is not. The car is going south. That would be contrary. Not P would be the car is not going north. And it seems a little silly, but if you think about it, like what if your car was going east? You always want these two to mean the opposite thing. If I had a car going east, this would be false, but this guy would be true. If I had the car going north, this guy would be true, this guy would be false. So this one will always have the opposite truth value of that, and that's what a negation is. Okay, so here's a couple tips, because you're going to do a lot of practice with negating statements. If you negate, here's a little tip. If you negate a universal statement, the result is an existential statement. Okay, so if you negate a universal statement, the result is an existential statement. So let's say my statement was, all goats have beards. You know, fun little sentence. I like this section because I can do that stuff. What is the negation of S? The negation of all goats have beards is not no goats have beards. Because guess what? No goats have beards is a statement about everybody again. The negation of this is actually some goats have beards. Or not all goats have beards. Most people are more okay with this one. You're like, oh, what's the negation of all goats have beards? Not all goats have beards. That makes sense. But did you know that logically speaking, the words some and not all are equivalent to each other? Well, they are. Fun fact of the day. So this one was a universal statement. These two are existential. There exists some goat. There exists at least one goat that has a beard. Or there exists at least one goat that does not have a beard. They actually mean the same thing. It's crazy. It's weird. I don't know. All right, let's try another one. See if you got it. So here's another one. So if I made my statement, let's make this statement Q. I just like to name them because later on we're going to use the symbols and stop writing everything out. Okay, so here's another one. How about no narwhals are gray? Right? That's a universal because it talks about all the narwhals. No narwhals are gray. That's a universal statement. Okay, the negation of that, don't say all narwhals are gray because that's another universal statement. The negation of that would be some narwhals are gray. If you don't know what a narwhal is, just look up a little Google image search of it. It's pretty good. Okay. Anyway, okay. So that's our negation of a universal always results in an existential. Okay. This, by the way, why it's existential is some narwhals are gray is logically equivalent to say there is at least one narwhal. That is gray. And it seems weird that we're doing all this Englishy stuff, but you know, this is what logic is based off of. This is how you make logical arguments and stuff like that. So, all right, let's do another one. You'll see, okay, so if we negate a universal, its result is existential. Guess what happens if you negate an existential statement? The result is a universal. Okay, so if you negate the existential, the result is a universal. Let's try out some. So here's an existential statement. There are red fire engines. The negation of that would have to be universal, and you could say there are not red fire engines, or you can say no fire engines are red, because you're saying there exists at least one red fire engine. So the negation of that would be a universal statement saying no fire engines are red. Doesn't mean it's true, it's still a statement, right? Same with this. Some people are Karens, right? The opposite, or the negation of that, not opposite, negation, is no people are Karens. Right? So this one's an existential. There exists at least somebody who's a Karen. Turns into a universal. So how do you negate an existential to make it turn into a negation, like the negative version, or the positive version, like all? Let me think about that for a sec. Okay, so here's some. Not all children pick their nose, right? Existential. It's weird. Sometimes you have a hard time picking this one out as an existential. So not all children pick their nose. The negation of that would be written like this, and that would be all children pick their nose. All right, so which is a universal. So the last one is how to negate a particular, and that's the easiest one. So to negate a particular statement, you pretty much add the word not. So you turn into like a first grader. You're like, today is my birthday, right? Today is my birthday. And the negation of that is, today is not your birthday, my birthday. Right? Or if you said, you know, it's basically just, no, it's not. Yes, it is. No, it's not. So if I had P was, John is a dentist, because this is particular, right? John is a dentist. This one's very easy to negate. You'd say, John is not a dentist. And then you get into fisticuffs about it. Don't you dare say it. But it's still a particular and a particular. They don't switch over. So it takes practice, recognizing the types, but and negation. So hopefully that makes sense. We'll do some practice with this the next time I see you. And I like these statement things. They're pretty cool. All right, talk to you later, people.